Hi, welcome to Christine's Corner. Today my guest is Richard P. Jackson. He has many gifts, a master of many of gifts, and we're going to find out about a few of them. So Richard, I know we have a lot of pictures. We'll talk about that later in front of you.
Yes.
What made you do what you're doing right now?
Well, a lot of people are very interested in spirituality these days. Probably always, people have always been interested in what runs things, whether it be God, religion, astrology. And lately with TV, radio, books, more and more people are become accustomed that there's things that maybe need to be examined, UFOs. Most people accept the fact that there's the spirits of people or things around. But it really had a heck of an accelerant with the internet. That isn't why I got into it, though. I got into it because the timing was right. I moved into a farmhouse 33 years ago. And in this farmhouse was my daughter and I, our animals, but an entity that I never expected. And we had to make sure we were safe. And the more that I checked into keeping us safe, the more I realized there's not only a good reason for it, but I better find people to help. I better find the best of people, because even if we leave this house, what I was getting from what was then and still are some world-class, recognizable in their knowledge people who said, you know, you can leave the house, it may leave with you. So in this year, it came out that I started working with some of these groups. They range from working with Thelma Moss from UCLA to the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine. And it wound up that it was noticed that I can take pictures, that I had the gift of discernment, that I seemed to be able to provoke or ask for things and get them, much to my chagrin, good and bad. And they asked me to start working with them. So I did.
Wow. That was 33 years ago.
33 years ago, and after 2 years, I went off on my own.
Oh, 2 years. So what are you doing now?
I am doing, interestingly enough, somebody remembered hearing my name because Ed Warren and I were in a very, very close relationship, like a father-son-y kind of relationship. And after I had left the group, I didn't leave on any bad terms. They used my pictures in their books and things. And a friend who I met years later, 10 years ago, said, I met his wife and said, you're the Richard Jackson I heard about. And we talked, we befriended, and I wound up helping his friend, who's a therapist. And actually, you met him.
Yes, we did a show on him.
And for 10 years, he has been giving me people, aside from, of course, people know me, I get calls and I get requests, from anywhere from doing readings to doing a blessing to doing a wedding to explaining about visualizing or meditating, because all those were part of the whole gamut of spirituality, of their spirits, but spirituality is the gifts we bring the world and the people around us. That we can change things by asking, that there are things that we don't know about, but because of what happened, I started noticing very early on that sometimes I can see these things and I can also photograph them. And it's not what I do now.
You can photograph the entity?
Entities, and I've done very little for almost 20 years, but I have 4,000 pictures from before,
wow,
of which about 300 are pretty amazing, and about maybe a third of those are really unique.
So these are some of those.
These are some of those. I don't know how well they'll transpose. We'll give it a crack. But what it led me to is we noticed that families would sometimes have certain characteristics. Not everyone, but some, should they have a haunting. It wasn't always a negative haunting, but sometimes it was extremely negative, and sometimes it wasn't. And along the way, we noticed that it often happened to people who had certain preconditions, addictions, sexual abuse. But it also happened to some of the finest people who did nothing except moved into a house, and it triggered something. Sometimes remodeling triggers it. Sometimes somebody has a friend in high school and they did something, and 10 years later, what they had asked for example, the Ouija board, all of a sudden, it answers them. So out of the blue, it seems, but in the spirit world, they don't go by the clock like we do. So I wound up effectively working with people from therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, because my friend introduced me to other people, other professionals, and we realized that not just what I've learned from helping families in distress and families who had preconceived, conditions, but I used all that I had learned in my life, and many of them were things that have to do with helping people as a hypnotherapist, as a healer, as a Reiki master, as a person teaching meditation, and they're all tools about raising our frequency. And so I started getting some of these tough cases where some of them were addicts who could simply, they just can't stop. And sometimes the answer was a spiritual answer. And so I've worked with, just through the people I've met over the 10 years, I've had somewhere between 300 and 350 families that have come to me via a request from their doctors or therapists or psychologists to work with them in a special way, and then they continue working with them, but I have that 1 or 2 or 3 sessions with them to help them in areas that I had a little more knowledge and skill with that the average therapist is not expected to. The average therapist is not going to be a medium. They're not going to be somebody who might discern or understand the significance of what such horrible things as rape does to people, and what it can bring on sometimes to people. It's been one heck of a career. It's taken me to a lot of places, but the main thing is helping people avoid crisis, and also to make the best of the crisis they have, because there's nothing that ever happens to us that we can't make some good come of it.
That's good.
That's my job.
Do you see dead people?
I see dead people.
Out of Sixth Sense words? No dead spirits around here.
The only thing you see around here is some very fine people.
Oh, okay.
What I see sometimes, like other people, is what other people see, but they don't allow themselves to recognize that they're seeing it. Like I might see in back of somebody all of a sudden a figure, like a large looming figure that's kind of very light. It's almost like the opposite of a shadow. That's often a family member, a guardian spirit, or it might in fact be the person themselves projecting their energy out. There's so many
guardian angel.
Yeah, the one thing we have that I would place anything I own on the fact, as much as it sounds a little bit almost hokey in a way to some people, we all have a guardian. Just like we have an appendix, we have a brain and a heart, and we have a spirit of some kind that is there just kind of keeping in track of where we are and what we do. It's part of the wonderful gift of being a human. And we do have help. And we have only sometimes to just ask for the help. And when we do, and we say thank you, does that make the bond stronger and the potential to do good stronger? Yes.
Oh, good. Good to know. You gave me a list of questions here. Can you, you did that, all right, of the spiritual realm. Before we look at your pictures or photo samples, any new plans?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I keep kicking the can down the road a few years, and I'm glad I did. It was about starting a podcast. We've secured it. It's going to be called thefreakingtruth.com. And it'll probably be on YouTube or in some form that's available. And I have enough of my list, and I'll extend to people, and hopefully, if there's things that can help people, I hope it goes somewhat viral. But that's up to, chance. What I want to do is start telling people that some of the rumors that are said for so long, they continue, and they become what people think is true, but it's not true. And I noticed that some of that is harmless, but some of that is also dangerous. if we think we can do certain things, or it's entertaining to go to a cemetery where people have practiced magic or done something they shouldn't, are there repercussions? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. So it's coming with a good sense about what to do about things, about what one thing brings something else on. The old expression, one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. If we go to a flea market, and I'm guilty of going and bringing things back home, but now if I don't do it before it goes in the house, I try to simply bless it, or I see it in a bright light, or I simply ask any energies that are attached to this picture or this bureau, just leave. Anything in my house must be of a Christly or a God consciousness. And does that matter? It just doesn't matter because I say it. It matters if anyone says it.
I was just going to ask, can anyone do this?
Anyone can do it. We can make the stipulation: if you are not of God's light, you can't come here. You can't be in my house. Does it work? 98, 99 out of 100 it does, yeah.
Do you need holy water for that?
It helps.
Okay.
And lately, I have found, I almost want someday to do a show on what I'm finding out more and more as our physicists, the incredible qualities of water that have been overlooked even by the best of scientists for all these years and millenniums and centuries. So sometimes blessing water is usually like the Catholic Church. And they're among my greatest allies and always have been. I'm not Catholic, but they're, the brotherhood we have. And what holy water is really holy salt put in water. Because salt is a crystal, diamond crystal salt. And as such, crystals like a diamond, like quartz, they have qualities that are real. The first transistors for radio were quartz. Mr. Marconi and another, it happened to be an Italian guy, I forgot his name, it might have been Fiume or something like that. But he also invented a radio at almost the same time. And so crystals they retain something. They retain the energy of a prayer. Now, anybody who doesn't believe it, because I love it when I'm speaking with crowds or groups or in the media, and I simply ask, well, do you use a computer? Because a computer is often based on silicon, and Silicon Valley. They're a man-made crystal.
Huh.
So crystals have their place. But water, when hydrogen, their elements, two hydrogen atoms bond with an oxygen, it becomes a water molecule. The bonding is so incredibly, intrinsically beautiful in a way that is unique in nature, that it has its own crystalline form, however minute. So that water, blessing water alone, I found, is very close to, and at times, because I've really been working on this lately, it seems to do the job the same, but I wouldn't say it definitely works. But it is, even in the Judeo-Christian Bible, in that realm, that the two things that were here, aside from God, our Creator, that were here by anyone reading Genesis, the beginning of the Bible, is light and water were here. Mm. They are necessary for life. They're necessary for the universe to operate. There's water everywhere in some form, but it is the only liquid that actually swells when it's frozen. And they're just discovering these unique things. I'll end it with this. There was a bestseller by a Japanese scientist who used to be the head of Sony. And he did experiments on what happens with water when you say great things to it or say foul things to it. When you freeze it or look at it under a microscope, it changes its identity entirely. We have nature records who we are and what we do. We got to be careful. We can make things work for us and work against us, and that is just beginning to become accepted and an acceptable part of the wonderful world we live in.
That's great. Let's see some photos.
Sure. See what we have here. Okay. This one, is I was at a cemetery, and because I'm at a cemetery, I always think, well, it doesn't mean there's spirits there. There's bodies buried, but often there might be spirits because of the people coming there, because of sometimes people walking through expecting to see something or see or hear from a relative. It's kind of a soft invitation, and it's usually pretty good. But I always think it's my duty that if anybody's done something in a cemetery that's a little bit off, or just if I happen to be there, I will always kind of turn around and ask that God's light shines bright in this place of rest. Not just for the spirits, because they're probably elsewhere, but even for the people who might be coming and burying or visiting the grave of their loved ones. So what you see here is light.
Yeah.
There wasn't any light. That was simply the result of me asking for God's light to hang over and surround and engulf the cemetery, doing good for anyone who needs it. There it is.
Wow.
In fact, the name Christ is light.
Okay.
That's what Christ means,
Yep.
God's light. Here's another one where there was a haunting. That's down over here.
Here for your speaker.
Oh, thank you. And above it, it's very bright light. It was a place where there had been a homicide. It became a show on what was now, or became the show Sightings, and originally was called Encounters on Fox TV. This is 20-something years ago. And it was in Gardner, Massachusetts, and it was where a homicide took place and a body was buried. So I simply asked for God's light to bless it if it needed it, because somebody was buried there without the benefit of any clergy or anyone saying a prayer. So what you're seeing there
Yeah.
is that Christly light.
Wow.
Jewish people on the Sabbath, often if they light candles, they bring in the Shabbos licht, they call it. Same thing.
Oh.
I have an interesting one here that I think you'll get a kick out of. I don't know how well it'll be in the photo, but you see the two faces here
Oh, God.
in
Yeah.
the wall. This was an extremely haunted house in New Hampshire, and I was in a room saying lots of prayers, and I started hearing voices. That happens. Sometimes it's called magic whispering, or like that feeling of an incarnate being is somehow speaking. But this seemed to come from right next to me, and I turned around, and the plaster was irregular, but it literally reformed itself and became two faces. And they started talking and chattering and saying foul things. And everyone in the room, because there were 3 or 4 people in the room, they did not know what to do with it. I was lucky enough to have a presence of mind to simply take a picture. But strange things happen in this world. Did the wall really change, or did it change for us? Like it was put in our heads that it was changing. Well, I don't know, but you can't do that to a camera. The camera picked up on those faces.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it shows in here somehow. This is a great story. This little guy. It's not that the picture's so outrageous, but you can see there's a fence with a little bit of like a rainbow over it.
Yeah.
This is one of about 15 shots I took. It was on a road in Woodbridge, Connecticut. And it was at a place that I used to go by, and my older brother told me about kids at a prom went over the side of the road, and 3 lost their lives. And 1, I guess, got really hurt, and that's all I knew. So when I found out that I could take pictures, and maybe I'll get something here, and I kept going back there getting pictures. I didn't get anything phenomenal, and I wasn't looking really for anything, except I knew there must be some energy of the kids. After about a half a dozen times, it occurred to me, if I'm getting energy, maybe those kids don't know that they're down there. And to them, they're trapped in a car, and it's been hours, but it's been years. So I then offered them to go. I believe they left. Every picture I took after, I got nothing. Then I got a call from a 90-year-old medium friend of mine named Claire from San Diego. who I met in the airport, and we bonded. She called me screaming at night at 4 in the morning to please answer my own mail, that the kids from the dance want to say thank you. Will you please pick up your own mail? Urgh. And she hung up on me. I never forgot that call. It was one of 2 she made where her role was to tell me that things that I thought may be happening or happened did.
Wow.
And they used her truly as a medium.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice, the kids from the dance.
Can anybody take photos and get these results, or is there something special?
Everyone
have-
now, because we have the benefit of computers, and a couple others to show, we'll see. I just brought a few. I didn't know what to take 400 pictures.
Well, the one of the evil one.
We're
being
gonna show
raped.
that. I didn't want to dwell on it because I also have wonderful ones of angelic beings
We've
and
got
stuff.
4 minutes.
But yeah, let me show that. This, by the way, just to show, is if it looks like a man's face, you got it.
Wow. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
This was the old saying about a serpent. This is also an evil case. Psychic energy, you see the snake?
I see the snake.
That was its second shot. The first shot happened above a balcony in a church that I had done and assisted the priest, who was a bishop, with over 80 exorcisms.
Wow.
This was one of the signs of departure. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yes.
And yeah, let's get that one. Okay. This is, that I know of, unique in the world. You can see the figure here. It looks like an alien head with eyes very low
Yeah.
and
Shoulders and
wide shoulders,
Yeah.
short, skinny head, pointed. It's an incubus. An incubus is some kind of entity. I don't think the jury's out exactly what it is. It's not common at all. But when it happens, it's not something people know what to do with. It's not always easily solved, but it was made famous by the movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey.
oh,
It was a true story, and that was
Wow.
from my friend Thelma Moss. So we were on a case in New Haven County, and this was a lady who incorrectly just asked for somebody to go out with and have fun with and just be, somebody to just see. She wasn't looking to get married. She was, in her 50s. This is how she got answered. And that entity was at our interview. It showed 3 times. I showed you another picture of it.
Yep.
And the interesting thing, if it's readily available, is that it's, where the attacks took place. Do you see the darkness over the bed?
yes, I do.
That, when people talk about, oh, that's an utterly dark person or a dark subject, they're not kidding. Darkness doesn't really exist. It only exists as the absence of light. It is not an equal force to light. It's simply what happens when light, in all of its forms, light is a physical form, light meaning good, meaning caring, knowing, warmth, when that gets pushed away, you have darkness. And this was something done to either teach people or intimidate me. It did both.
You did both.
Yeah, at the
It would
time.
be. What's that picture there underneath?
This is a picture of trees in a very haunted area.
Yeah.
And you can see there's all kinds of clouds of it's called cyclical or psychic energy. And it's just energy that can't be explained. Did we see it? No. Was it foggy? Not at all. It was a crisp, clear night in November, or October actually, just before the leaves changed. And it had significant things happened on this land with Native Americans and pioneers and things. It had a history. And I just said, maybe we'll get some spiritual energy. We sure did. And whatever spiritual energy it was either getting it from the trees, or it was enjoying the fact that the life force in trees, which is very real, we now know that even plants have their form of communication. For whatever reason, it's able to draw energy from all things, whether it was good or bad.
No.
Isn't that important? What was important is that trees and plants and human beings can and will often be drained by the presence of spirits, usually negative, but even just energy, cyclical energy, can be draining.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that nature
it's
had.
why always ask for the light, and always ask that nothing that isn't of the brightest light be around you. It helps
Yeah.
a lot.
Well, thank you for coming, and good luck with, what was the name of the title?
It's going to be thefreakingtruth.com.
Okay.
And I'm going to announce it on the social media and through other people. And it's going to also enliven my site, which will also have the news in it, which is richardpjackson.com. And anybody could email me, and my number's there, and I'd be happy to help anybody out,
For
especially my
more
local
information.
nutmeggers.
For more information.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for watching Christine's Corner. Love you. See you again next week.
Thank you.
The Saybrook Fish House in Canton has been serving fresh seafood, chicken, and steak entrees for 34 years, offering 3 cozy dining room settings, a newly renovated pub with craft beer, wine by the glass, specialty cocktails, and a lighter fare menu. Open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Reservations accepted for parties of 2 to 42, and gift certificates are also available. The Saybrook Fish House, nestled at the crossroads of Route 44, 202, and 179 in Canton.